Hi, and welcome to our show. Today's guest is Jennifer Sclar, who's the Assessor Administrator. And Jen, you're here to talk to us about the new tax rate.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So by the time this show airs, the Department of Revenue will have confirmed what your work and what the selectmen did at the classification hearing this month. And we'll have two new tax rates. The residential rate is?
1718.
And the commercial rate is?
2957. That's a test right off the bat.
Well, you passed, so
Oh,
now
good.
you get
No.
to.
I think the first question everybody always asks, let's put it on the record. I'm an elected assessor in my town and new to that. But the first question I always get asked is, how do you come up with the valuation of a property?
Right. This is fiscal 16. So fiscal
Right.
16's value is based on what the market was doing in 2014. So we're looking at sales from 2014, for example, on a residential class 1 property. We're verifying those sales, which is a very important piece to what we do. If the sale is no good, it isn't truly representing the market. So we need to be able to investigate the sale, make sure that it is in fact an arm's length valid sale. Those all get grouped together. We look at all of those trends, and then what they call mass appraisal. You apply that trend to all of the property values across the board. And then with the commercial and industrial, we're analyzing rental information, expense information. What is it costing the commercial properties to operate their property? And again, you're running an income and expense approach to determine what is their profit and what is the values of the property.
So it's possible if I'm living in a subdivision with identical homes, built at the same time,
Yep.
depending on what I do in the inside of the home, they could be valued differently.
They could be valued differently depending on what's inside, absolutely. Yep, condition, quality of materials and workmanship, all of those things.
One adds an outdoor pool, one doesn't.
That's right,
Okay.
absolutely, yep.
But the good news is, and I'm holding your chart from the classification hearing, property values went up.
They did.
Because for a while there, they were in the recession, they were going down, and I think last year they started to turn.
Yep,
And that would have been on 2013's
market.
market. So in 2014's market, you said there's an average of 4% across
right.
the board?
Yep, 4%.
Why is that good?
Well, property values are increasing. People's,
Now, does it have an impact on the tax rate?
It does. The tax rate is just an equation, if you will, of what town meeting voted and applied against the value of the town. So if the values are going to go up, the other side to that, to balance that levy off, is the rate usually will come down unless
So-
there's something significant that happened in between.
And curiously, when the values were declining, the rate was going up.
That's right. It's always a
Which
balancing.
people had trouble understanding.
Yeah, it's always a balancing act. If it goes up, rate comes down.
Which means my taxes really may not change.
Probably not, but you have to remember Prop 2.5 allows the town to levy or raise 2.5% over what they raised last year.
The levy.
The levy,
Most
not an
people think it's
individual.
their tax bill,
It's
but
not
it's
their
the
tax bill.
overall
That's right.
amount of taxes against the entire town.
Now, how close are you to your levy limit?
If they had not voted the 2.8 million, they would have been very close. The exact numbers in the presentation I gave, but
Which I have.
it's 2 million 8 something, so they would have been close.
But they're still a distance away from their levy limit.
Yes.
Absolutely,
Oh, that's good. That's a good thing.
And for the first time, the town's valuation topped $3 billion.
that's right. Yes, it did. Yep,
That includes everything in town.
everything in town.
Okay.
Now, why is that good?
Well, the more the value of the town, the more tax revenue you can get out of it. So if you're a
Taxpayer. If I'm a taxpayer, then that's not a good thing, right?
If you're a taxpayer, it's not a good thing. If you're running a town, it's a good thing.
If you're running a town, it's a good thing, but if you're a taxpayer, it's not a good thing because then they can tax you more.
Not necessarily.
It's a good thing because the value of your property has now increased. You have probably more equity.
Which means you can sell it for a higher amount.
Higher amount,
That's right.
but my taxes went up too, or maybe.
Now, what I
Yes.
like is you did something this year in your presentation to selectmen is, there were a lot of figures going around prior to the October special town meeting as to whether if you use 2 million to reduce the tax rate or 2.8 million. The town meeting said 2.8,
Right.
whereas I wrote, I could not believe a man stood up and said, please raise my taxes, by saying lower it. But anyway, according to your figures, and it's not like you're getting a rebate, it's the taxes are lower than they would have been.
That's right.
But the average single-family homeowner's bill will be $134 less due to that
Offset.
offset.
And what's the average value of the home that you figured that on?
On a residential, I'm trying to remember what it was in there. Something. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I'm getting there. You had these numbers. $265,100. Oh, sorry, $275,800.
There
On a
you go.
single family.
I
On a
looked at
single
the
fa-
wrong year.
Okay, so you're saying that the average price of a home is 200, whatever that number is.
Right, and what that's taking into account is if there are, say there's 7,000 single-family homes, it's taking the total value of all of those and just dividing it by 7,000. So you're going to have, I mean, it is truly just an average.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was just,
Okay. But because the commercial and industrial folks paid that 1.48% times the residential bill, they actually are going to save, or their bill didn't go up for commercial people $769 and for industrial $1,121.
Right,
Oh,
So they get a bigger savings because they're paying more taxes.
right, their values are much higher.
which
On
is a
average.
motivator for businesses to come to Milford, which is a good thing.
Right.
Well, I think that the split rate is not necessarily attractive for a commercial property, but the fact that the town was willing to dedicate nearly $3 million to bring that rate down and keep it down is certainly attractive to a business looking at the community as a whole.
Well, I'm just looking at the quote-unquote average single-family homeowner. His bill would go up $87, not $221.
Yeah,
And the commercial was going up $339, not $1,108. That's a good savings.
Well,
it's significant.
well, that's significant because what it does, it makes it businesses in tough times. The economy's not,
No, but I'm also looking at a
Which means-
homeowner. I mean,
well, both
you know, as a
benefit.
homeowner, I'd rather pay an 87% increase. Well, I don't want to pay any increase, but I'd rather pay $87 than $221.
Absolutely. But the significant part of it is both those tax rates are not jumping through the ceiling, which will motivate businesses. In these tough times, businesses will be less encumbered, which
Absolutely.
is beneficial to the business and also beneficial to the homeowner.
Yeah, so again, I'm paging through your presentation, so I'm looking.
He has a cheat sheet.
I know.
It's not.
I know.
Nine single, see, you handed it to me. 9 single-family homes, 37 new residential lots created, which eventually means 37 new homes.
That's right.
31 new condos, that's mostly Walden Woods, which is just about built out. 70 new personal property accounts. There's been 70 new businesses,
Wow. Well, that's good. That's a good thing.
and 5 million in utility growth. Does that mean they're adding more poles and wires, or does that mean they're valued more, or both?
Or they're replacing equipment.
Or they're replacing
So,
equipment?
yeah, so the depreciation gets knocked off and you're back to a
This
new piece of
What
equipment.
is it, utility?
5
Utilities.
million in utility growth.
Well, that also includes any pipes that are put in the ground for the water, right?
No,
It doesn't, okay.
no, no.
No, that's just electric
This would
and
be
gas.
your cell phone companies,
Okay.
your telephone companies, NSTAR, Eversource.
Right. And the assisted living facility was probably
Blair House?
Blair House. I think the,
The other one came online the
Cornerstone
year
was the
before.
year before.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Cornerstone came on
Right.
the year before.
That's
Blair
right.
House.
anything big coming up this year so far?
And then you didn't mention, but we've got Beaver Pond, our condominiums that are just starting to move again. They had built, I think, 8 units along Beaver Street and then started another
Right.
one, so.
Well, that was my question, is what's, for next year's tax cycle,
Tax base, yeah.
That's coming up. Anything else coming up?
Yeah.
The hospital would be in that, wouldn't it?
It wouldn't, because it's not taxable value.
Oh, that's right.
You know, so when you say the town has a value, a total value of $3 billion, that's taxable value.
That
So
doesn't
all your,
include- yeah.
you know, all your other infrastructure, town infrastructure, schools, hospitals, you know, all of that is exempt.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's
Beaver
taxable.
Beaver Pond's coming online. Any other big
Ugh.
construction?
Put me on the spot with that one. I can't think off the top. I mean, there's some small commercial construction. There's one down past on Main Street past Dunkin' Donuts there.
The dental office building,
Yep. You've got that going. Trying to think.
the new medical office building across the street from the hospital should be built.
But owned by,
If it's owned by the hospital, then it
It's
will
not.
will it be?
No.
Do you know? I don't
No,
know.
it's privately owned.
be. If it's privately
Okay.
owned,
That's the
then
one at
they'll-
the corner of 16 and 140. That's privately owned.
Okay. We're getting to be, it's about that time where we'll start analyzing all of the permits now that we're coming
Yeah.
to year end. And that's what we'll be doing is estimating growth in the upcoming
So
years.
this is a never-ending cycle for you.
Oh, yeah. One thing ends and when the next thing begins.
Do
so-
people really understand everything an assessor's office does?
Of course not. You know, and there's so many different things that we do that it's hard to really inform anybody of all of them in one sitting.
I mean, every time a house is sold, don't you guys have to process the, tax bill to the seller and the buyer?
No, absolutely not.
Who does that?
The closing
collector?
attorney, that's done at closing.
Okay,
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No. No, it's actually right on their HUD statement.
okay.
Yep, so that's something that they do. We will apportion a bill mid-year if, say, it was a lot split. You have a house lot and it's now two, and you've got two different parties. They
Okay.
can come in and request that we apportion that out and divvy.
Okay.
And that legally separates the responsibility of those two pieces now into the different ownership.
But
Yeah.
you also handle the excise tax bills for cars. They come through your office.
And also the complaint department.
Yes,
Oh, absolutely, the complaint, because anybody that complains usually goes to the assessor's office to complain first.
they do. We just had that conversation yesterday. And I said, did you notice everybody comes here? Is it
First.
because it's alphabetically first? I
No,
mean,
no,
what is
no,
the,
no,
you
no,
know?
no.
And you're not
Yeah.
first in the door either. I mean,
No,
you've got
no.
the town clerk on one side, and the other side, you've got the selectman's office.
I know.
Yeah,
As
well,
first, so,
yeah.
so I don't know why they come to
Oh,
you.
it's simple, because. they
Well,
don't-
18,000 excise bills go out, you know, first round only.
Yeah.
18,000.
Yeah, the town manager doesn't send somebody a bill,
Yeah,
the only people that send people out bills are you guys.
yeah. Well, and I think that's a very significant statement because we are directly affecting people's finances,
Right.
you know?
So if there's a complaint, they're gonna come to you,
Well,
because
right.
typically it's because of money,
Right.
which is understandable.
And many people have hardships and they come in as well and they want information and,
Abatements,
absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, now abatement is if something like I sold my car and I want to get the excise tax done just to the day that I had it,
To the month.
to the month, okay?
Yeah, it's prorated by the month.
Exemptions are more, you meet a criteria to get your taxes reduced.
Yeah.
Right.
The easiest way to look at it is an abatement is for the property, whether it be a vehicle or on real estate, the property.
Okay,
An exemption is to the entity, the person, or the owner, the type of ownership, say a charity, a hospital, etc. So an exemption is is the way the person or entity or owner qualifies abatement's property.
okay, but usually there are those for veterans, the elderly, disabled, et cetera.
Seniors,
And
blind,
they have to file for them every year.
they have to file annually. Yep.
Okay,
And there's a certain income qualification
There
required
is.
in most of that stuff.
There is only an income and an asset test for what they call a Clause 41C, that's your senior exemption. And it's very important to note that because on the tax bills, this was the first time we tried to put a little blurb on the bill so people knew that they were out there, that these exemptions existed. But we don't have a lot of room on the bill, you know,
Right.
so it didn't really go into that income asset piece. And that is a piece. It's not just the age that will qualify a
Right, it's
person.
income
Yes,
assets,
so
right.
there is an income limit and an asset limit, you know, depending on their marital status, et cetera.
okay, but it's there if people think they need
It's
it.
absolutely there.
Well, it's a question worth asking. If you think you have the possibility of having that, then it's worth asking the question and running through the test to see if you qualify.
Right.
Some of the southern states, when you hit 65, they no longer tax you for schools. Massachusetts doesn't do that, though.
No, they don't. Condo owners pay the same share as everyone else, but they have, in many cases, private roads, private trash. There are a lot of instances where not all taxpayers are benefiting from all of the tax dollars that they're necessarily
Schools is a
paying.
prime example of that.
School is huge, obviously that's the biggest piece.
Right, I mean, the reason I hear about it down south is basically they tax the people who could have school-aged children up to age 65. They tax them more, obviously, to give the seniors a break on the grounds that, well, your kids are in school, so you should pay for it. Theirs aren't, so you shouldn't. But it's something that I know when people move up to the south up here, which does happen, and they go, what do you mean I'm paying for schools?
I know. No, absolutely not.
Over the long haul, that may change, maybe.
Maybe, but
I don't know about that.
Not in my lifetime, but
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Okay.
what other exemptions and what other possibilities for somebody who out there can really reduce their taxes? You mentioned veterans. How do
Yes.
what's the benefit for veterans?
There's actually quite a few for veterans. If they have a service-related disability of 10% or more, they're entitled to an exemption of $400 or more off their tax bill. That's money that they're entitled to. It's money that comes off their bill. There's no repayment. It's something they've earned, and they have to apply, and then
Every year.
annually they sign the form, send it in, and they get it. They'll get that for the rest of the time that they own that
That's
property.
driven by the state or the city?
The state sets these
Okay.
legislative
Okay.
requirements.
Right, so that's set by the state.
There's many others. If it's 100% disability, it's $1,000 off their bill. If they have earned a Purple Heart, for example, that special award will give them an exemption as well. So there's all sorts of different awards and service-related. Yeah, there's a big long list. But those are the ones we see the most often, are the ones that we just talked about.
Okay, and for the benefit of those people who didn't know they existed, if they're interested, they should call your office at Town Hall and ask.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Call the office, we'll send you the form. We can help you fill out the form. If you can't get to us, we'll come to you.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's very overwhelming, especially with the seniors when you're asking them for their financial information. Say they don't have a family member that can help fill things out. They're very nervous sometimes. So you want to, set their mind at ease. Let them know that this information is protected in our office.
It's totally confidential.
It's totally confidential.
Nobody but the assessor sees it.
Nobody. Absolutely not. They're in a locked cabinet. And that information is just for our use so that we can get them to
It
either
doesn't go to the
qualify or
state.
not. It doesn't go anywhere.
Now, how many people are in the assessor's office?
How many staff members?
Yes.
Myself, I have an assistant, Liz. We have Becky, who does our property inspections. She's going out doing sales. She's looking at sales to make sure that we have the most appropriate data, as well as building permits, right, all of that. And then what they call cyclical. Every 9 years, we have to revisit a property. So we have Becky, and we have a new addition, Joanne, and she's in the office for support staff as well. So
Cool.
they're great. They're all great girls, if you ladies, and if you
Yeah, we'd get shot if we
I
said
know.
that.
I said that, and I thought,
Wham.
that didn't sound right. But they're all very approachable, very willing to help with this information.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And they all understand the sensitivity of it. Yep.
So if you're a veteran or a senior or both, you can go down and talk to somebody and understand what those things are.
That's right. And if you're a veteran and a senior, husband and wife, you can get both.
Oh, wow.
So I have to ask Al, are you getting your
No,
veterans
I'm not getting any exemptions.
No, huh?
No.
You're entitled?
Sorry.
Entitled, yeah, right. Well, maybe I should go see him about it for that. I'm a veterinarian, no vet. No.
Oh,
Okay.
So what other good things are going on in the?
I would just mention there's two other exemptions that aren't utilized very much. There's called a Clause 18. It's a hardship application. It's for financial hardship. Usually, it's the only exemption that is somewhat discretionary. The Board of Assessors has a little more authority on that to make a decision. There is not a set dollar amount by the state.
Okay.
So it's more based on what are you bringing in, what have you got going out. A lot of times, the two requirements are aged and infirmed. You have to be ill, you have to be unable to work, something along those lines, okay? So you're older, you don't have the ability to work and bring in more revenue. This is all that you are bringing in. Here's all my medical bills. You look at the two and you say they've got more going out than they've got coming in. You can grant them some financial relief in the form of an exemption like the others, where that money comes off
And
the
what's the
bill.
maximum you can go there?
There's no cap.
So you could go, theoretically now,
Yes.
just theoretically, you could say to someone,
Right.
the difference that you're short, I'll take that off your taxes.
That's right.
You could do that, so they have a net zero.
So the three-member board meets with you and
Yep.
decides.
We would review the application, here's their situation, you get a lot more detail, in detail with those. And then they make a decision. They would not want to continue to give that on a yearly basis to the same party. It's really more of a, this is trying to get you over a hump or get you back
You have a
square.
temporary hardship and we want to
Right.
help.
Right. If they were in a situation that was more permanent, they would recommend that they go into the other program I was going to tell you about, which is a deferral. And a deferral program allows you to defer the payment of your taxes, part or all, up to you. That one is a little bit more significant. It puts a lien on the property.
I was going
It's
to say, at
due
some point,
back.
they're paid.
Yes.
Okay, so you
That
put a
one's
lien
due
on the
back.
property, so
Right.
then what happens is that if you could go for 4 or 5 years, but that would build as a lien on the property. So if the property's ever sold, you'd have to satisfy that lien. So if you,
Right.
what it means is that if I were to do that, and I'd say my taxes were $4,000 a year,
That's
and
right.
I let it sit there for 5 years,
Yep.
then there'd be $20,000 in lien. Now, does that collect interest?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so it'd be 20,000 plus interest would be due when you sold the house. So if I sold the house, then I'd have to first pay off the lien.
Is that typically done by elderly people
Yes.
who have an income hardship?
Yep, absolutely. Usually ones that don't necessarily have kids or an estate that they're worried about having that impact.
Right.
A lot of times you'll talk to people and say, well, there's this option, but it comes with this
Price.
requirement and a repayment. And they say, oh no, I don't want to do that. Let me see what else I can come up with first. And so you say, okay, maybe they weren't ready for that. They don't need that. We don't have any right now. We have no party in a 41A deferral program.
Okay.
Do you have any in the farming or land that's been taken, farmland that's been put on in 60?
Chapter
61A?
61?
Chapter 60.
Yeah, 61, 61A, and 61B are the three. I think we have 4 parcels.
Farmland opens, forest and,
61's forest, 61A is your agriculture and horticulture, and then B is recreation.
I was going to say, I would not expect there to be a lot of that in Milford.
No, very few.
I'm surprised you have 4.
Nipmuc, Rod and Gun,
Yeah, okay.
yep. I'm trying to think of the other one. Maspinock,
That's better.
Man, right?
okay.
2 gun
And
clubs.
then 2 private owners.
No, interesting.
Yeah, so not much
Yeah.
at all,
Well, I wouldn't think so. Most of the land is
right?
occupied or granite.
I had forgotten that
Right.
Nipmuc Rod and Glen is in Milford. I'd forgotten that. Interesting. Interesting. I'd
I thought it was
forgotten that.
partly in Upton, but
Well, yeah,
I think that's in both.
yeah,
Yeah,
I know the Rangers are in Milford.
yes.
yeah,
So I always look at that because they're building a new subdivision road right across the Rangers.
right.
And I'm waiting for the people to move in and start complaining.
Well, that's inevitable.
Yeah.
Inevitable. Not in my neighborhood.
But, okay, you've been in the position a year. Any
Yes.
surprises, anything unexpected?
Not really. This was, I think they were very smart in the way they did our transition.
Well, you were kind of hand recruited, weren't you?
Well, I've known Priscilla, who was
Priscilla
my...
Hogan, your predecessor.
That's right. I've known her for 20 years. When I first started in this business, I worked for the town of Northborough, and she was on the board. So she wasn't my direct boss, but we
Right.
worked together for about a year, and then I left and moved on to another town. So I've known her that long, 20
Right.
plus years. And we've just kept in touch. You see each other a lot with assessors. Assessors are a very tight network of people supporting one another. And we belong to associations, both Worcester County and Mass Assessors Associations. We've both served on many of their committees. So you stay in touch because you're involved in these things, and especially continued education for people getting into this field. So yeah, so we've been in touch for many years, and she said, I think you're perfect. Come meet with the board. And it
you
worked
did a
out.
transition together.
And we did do a transition together. The plan was to keep her on board. I started November 17th, And her last day technically was the following February 1st. She had some vacation time, so she kind of was in and out, but it was wonderful. I think that was a fantastic plan because, you know, Priscilla, where are these? Where do you put that? How do you do that? Do you have any chapter land? You know?
Right.
She said 4, and I did a little happy dance because there were so few, because they're hard to administer, you know? So, I mean, all those little things, and you know, it gave me a chance to get all of that historical knowledge that she held on to.
So you weren't
in her
chasing
head.
it, right.
That's right.
I think that's important because when somebody like her who'd been there clearly had well over 10 years, I can't remember how many years.
Yeah,
When you leave, you lose the institutional knowledge.
you do.
Plus, you had staff turnover in the office.
Yes, we did. We
So
had a
I
lot.
think Becca was the only one staying there, so,
Seasoned. When I started, she was the only one.
right.
Yeah.
So
I had to replace 2 people immediately.
that
Wow.
does it.
Well, I mean, relatively speaking, that's not a bad thing.
No, I don't think so.
No.
No, you get a chance to get people in that you think are going to work with
Right.
your team, you know?
Right. That's correct.
Yeah,
It's the nature of the beast.
right.
Is there
I think
anything you'd change?
About the office
Yeah.
or, I don't know, not a whole lot. I mean, I think that if I could say something, and I hate to even speak it, but I think that technology could go a long way.
Bada bing. See, that was my next question.
Well,
Yeah.
I was going to say, most of what you do functionally is governed by state laws.
Right,
So you really can't change a lot of that.
no,
But I think anybody would benefit from better technology.
absolutely.
Well, Milford is going through that whole transition and trying to figure out what they're going to do and how they're
Right.
going to do it anyway. So,
Yes.
and your office will be a critical part of that process because you depend a lot on technology.
Right, right. And they've made headway, you know, already. I mean, they've got.
What would you be looking for? Just curious.
Well, I think in general, there is software that's used not just by our office, but it's actually the tax collectors program, for example, that's very outdated. They're not interconnected in a good way, you know. There seems to be a lot of work that gets done in triplicate. Even though I can post abatements and they go over to her side, it seems like she still has to do a lot of work when it gets there. And you know, there are things like that it could be streamlined a lot by
Modernization
upgrading.
of the
Yeah,
software. Mhm.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot more out there available now.
Put it in the 5-year capital plan, see where
Yeah,
it goes.
I know. So it all works, you know. We don't have any major flaws with the way that it works. The bills go out, they go out the right way, they go out on time, but
Everybody has to pay them. There's no excuse.
no, not many.
Okay.
Bummer.
Well,
Sorry.
Well, you know what? I hate to say this, but we're out of time.
It went by fast.
It did.
It really did.
So
we didn't
Jennifer,
ask-
thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
for having me. We'll have to,
Do it again. next
yeah,
year.
there's tons more we can cover.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, thanks.